This is Geometry, Chapter 10, Section 8, in which we will be studying equations of circles. When we're talking about a circle, remember we can find the circle knowing the center and knowing the radius. If we want to write the algebraic equation for such a circle, if we're in a coordinate graph, and I know the radius is r, and I know the center is some point hk, then the equation looks like this: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Let's write a couple of equations for circles. We'll start with an easy one, the center at the origin, and the radius is the square root of 10. I know the center, so I know h and k are both 0, 0, because the center is hk, and there's no points that are at the origin. And we know the radius is the square root of 10, so that's r. X minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals the square root of 10 squared. We want to clean this up as much as we can. X minus 0 is just x, y minus 0 is just y, and the square root of 10 squared is 10. So we cleaned up as much as we could without getting carried away. That was the easy version. Now let's look at the more interesting version, where we have an actual point, not just the origin, to have to plug in. And watch what these crafty devils did. They gave us the diameter instead of the radius. Well, if we know the center, we can plug those in for h and k. So x minus 4 squared, because h is 4. Y minus negative 1, so y plus 1 squared, equals, and the radius here is 4 squared. We'll clean up as much as we can without getting carried away. We don't need to distribute these things out, but we do need to clean up 4 squared is 16. We can go the opposite direction too. They can give us the equation and ask us to identify the center and the radius. Okay. So we're looking for the h, the k, and the r. If we see an x plus 4 here, that's a tip-off that h is negative 4. K is 3, because it was y minus k, if you look back at your first page over there. And the radius, well, r squared is 16, so r must be 4. Okay. Let's look at one more of this nature. And for some reason, this always throws people off. They can pick out the 5, but they get lost over here. Since there's nothing in the parentheses with the y, then that would be a 0. So it's 5, 0. And the radius, you could say the square root of 18, and yes, I know you could break that down, but I would let you leave it like that. Or if you wanted to punch that in your calculator, you could get a decimal for it. I'll take either one. Let's look at another case here where they give us the center and they tell us some other point on the circle. Okay. Remember, the two pieces of information we really need are the center and the radius. When we have the center, we're fresh out of radii. Now fortunately, we can find the length of the radius. We can use the distance formula. Your old dear friend here, to find the length of that radius. Okay, plugged in the values, do a little arithmetic, and we get the square root of 52. You'll notice I'm not getting a decimal for that. because I know the equation is just going to turn around and say r squared. So I can square this easily. The square root of 52 squared is just 52. Plug in the h and the k. X plus 3 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals 52. Make sure you use the center. Don't get tangled up with this extra point here. It doesn't apply to the circle, to the equation of the circle, because you need the center for that. Okay. One last thing we have to be able to do is graph a circle. And graphing a circle is easy. Okay. First thing we need to know is the center and the radius, but we know how to do that. The center is -4, +1, and the radius is 5. -4, 1, there's my center. And then the radius is 5. What I'm going to do is measure 5 up. I'm going to measure 5 right, 5 down, and 5 left. And then I'm going to draw something circle shaped, something with some roundness to it. Close enough. Okay, your circles can be just as hideous as mine and it will be okay. Now what you can't get away with is what I'm doing here. Don't just draw me a diamond and say that's the best circle you can make, because I know you can do better than that. So the diamond, not so much. Okay, and I told students once to put some curve in it, so I had a guy do this. Try to put curve in it that way. No, don't do that either. You can make something resembling a circle. Okay. So we dealt with the equation of the circle here. We dealt with finding center and finding radius and using that to make the graph. If you had questions along the way, hopefully you wrote those down. Bring them in with you, and we'll see you in class.